You know what's funny about Gen 8? If you take all the game's initials and put them side by side, look what it spells. Sad. It's just like me. We are officially a couple weeks away from the release of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, and things are looking pretty bright for our favorite animal catching series. The hype for these games are reaching an all-time high that has me sleep deprived waiting for what kind of new experiences are to be had. No, seriously, I haven't slept in a very long time. This game, along with Legends Arceus, are proving to be one of Game Freak's greatest years to date and makes me truly happy to call myself a Pokemon fan. But it wasn't always this way. At a time not too long ago, I was genuinely afraid to tell people how massive of a Pokemon fan I was, and that goes for a lot of other people too. And it wasn't just for a couple months or a year. No, this went on since June 6th of 2017 all the way till January 21st, 2022. So this is the glass half full, and let's talk about the lowest point of the Pokemon fan base, or what I like to call it, the worst time to ever be a Pokemon fan. So I think I just made a pretty bold statement. Like, how do I truly know that this would be the worst time period to be a Pokemon fan? And personally, I think it's kinda obvious, but I do need to provide some context. So let's take a dive back to the year 2017 when we thought the Virtual Console was gonna come to the Switch. Wow, Nintendo really butchered that up. Pokemon just came hot off their 20th anniversary and the release of Sun and Moon. At the time, these games had a lot of praise for finally breaking the stereotypical gym format and pushing the boundaries of the 3DS and Pokemon's capabilities as a whole. Or it sucked balls, you never know with Pokemon fans these days. However, it was a brand new year and a very important one at that because Nintendo's shiny new not at all defective console came out, the Switch. I don't really need to tell you how important this is for Nintendo, but their new console was finally bridging the gap between handheld games and console games, and that means that every Nintendo series will only be available on one console. Which was a massive deal for Game Freak because now there was no more limitations on bringing mainline Pokemon games to the big screen, and not just spin-offs. Finally, we'll get the Pokemon game every fan has dreamed of. These absolutely shitty depictions of what the series is gonna look like in 20 years, they're gonna be real. Hype was at an all-time high, with the heavily rumored Pokemon Stars looking like it would come out later that year. This was also a huge deal for Nintendo as well, because presumably they'd want a Pokemon game on the Switch as fast as possible to really boost them sales, you know? And so our prayers were finally gonna be answered on June 6th, 2017, with a new Pokemon Direct that will finally give us everything we were waiting for.
Never mind.
Well, I mean, we kinda got Pokemon Stars. Like, the rumors kept saying a sequel, but this was just not expected. Needless to say, I was a bit disappointed, but I guess it's partially our fault as well for thinking that Game Freak was ready to jump ship to the Switch already. And the controversy didn't even stop there, as Ultra Sun and Moon looked way too similar to the originals. But how about Black 2 and White 2? Those games were sequels but had a lot of hype behind them. Well, let's just say the trailer didn't really do this game any favors. However, Game Freak was able to fix everything come E3, when Ishihara came down from the heavens themselves and told us the thing that reassured us that Pokemon is still the best thing ever.
Game Freak has begun developing a core RPG Pokemon title on Nintendo Switch.
Oh, thank God. For a second I thought you guys were done making games. And well, the year finished up with nothing more to say. Ultra Sun and Moon came out to some good success, with most people saying it was better than the originals. I wouldn't know though, because fun fact, these are the only Pokemon games I've never played through. Was it because I was mad and wanted to boycott Game Freak? No, I was just a broke 14-year-old. So in the end, 2017 wasn't a complete bust, but I was a bit disappointed, honestly. While all these other series are getting massive upgrades on the first year of the Switch, Pokemon just kinda chilled. But no matter, because this is only gonna get much worse. 2018, a year that kicked off with Tide Pods, Forests, and a brand new Pokemon Direct. The 3DS is now very, very dead, which makes me very happy because now we get Pokemon on a home console. No more limitations, and Pokemon will finally be able to capture its true potential. Like I said before, Game Freak was working on a game for the Switch since last year, and if we're really lucky, this could be our first look at a brand new generation. You know, maybe staying on the 3DS for one more year was a good thing. So they had more time to polish the next big step in the evolution of Pokemon. When was Eevee a starter Pokemon? I never played through the original Red, Blue, Yellow, Green, Fire Red, and Leaf Green games. God damn, there's a lot of Kanto games. So I got a good kick out of playing these mostly faithful games. Like, look at this Eevee. How could I ever be mad at this Eevee? But what the fuck, Game Freak? Why pander to Kanto even more? We get it. It's a good gen, but why? But you know what? Perhaps we were asking for too much. I mean, let's be fair. For the past decade or so, there's been a new gen every 3 years. And I really expected a whole new experience after Sun and Moon just came out. And this game was a pretty good way for Pokemon Go players to get used to the mainline Pokemon games, so I guess the seasoned virgin Pokemon fan like me should be a little more patient. Yes, it does kind of piss me off that something like Smash Ultimate came out when Smash 4's development wrapped up in only a year or so, and Smash fans are still getting treated super well, but no complaining from me. Nothing at all. I mean, my name is literally the glass of the last half full. I should be looking on the bright side of things. And we Pokemon fans know that come 2019, that will be our year. And 2019 was certainly a Pokemon year, so let's just get to that. So the Let's Go games are now past us, and everyone knew what was coming next. Gen 8. All the signs pointed to it. It's been 3 years since Sun and Moon. Game Freak has now gotten properly adjusted to the Switch, and the fact that Game Freak said themselves that Gen 8 is releasing this year. So I think, and again, I think we can infer that the next gen is coming. And there were no more excuses as well for taking so long. So come February 27th, it's gonna finally be time to see the home console game every Pokemon fan was waiting for. Is this game made for the 3DS? It's Pokemon, alright, but that's kind of it. Just Pokemon. Same thing we saw for our entire lives. Not the big time game defining experience we were all waiting for. I mean, I was still extremely excited for a new Pokemon game and Monkey. But a lot of other people could be disappointed, and it makes sense. After years of hype and interesting games, this was the home console experience that Game Freak had planned for us, and so this started the great divide in the fandom. Those who are excited and those who are disappointed, but we can all agree that this is only the first trailer, so we should wait a bit longer before we form any opinion. I mean, I wanted to stay hopeful at the very least, but then came E3 and everything and everyone went to shit. So the new trailer itself wasn't super controversial. Like, I think it was definitely a step up from the first trailer, as most trailers are. The controversy only came after the trailer, and before I say anything else, I'm not going to be stating my opinion, just kind of playing for both sides, because who wants to hear my opinion? That's just stupid. So Dexit. What the fuck happened? So in a very brief interview with Famitsu, Masuda said a lot of stuff, but in a very casual way, he kind of just says, yeah, not every Pokemon is gonna be in this game. We just really want to focus on some high-level animation. What? This Pokemon game, out of every Pokemon game, would not feature every Pokemon. The one that runs on the most powerful console out of every Pokemon game would not feature the 800 plus creatures we all know and love, but a game that runs in 240p on a much weaker handheld can feature every Pokemon? And we all kind of know what happened from there. Now in hindsight, I don't find this as big of a deal, but back then, oh god, this was the worst move Game Freak could have ever pulled. And I think the biggest reason is we weren't used to it, and it was so out of the blue. Like, again, every Pokemon gen had a render for every previous Pokemon. Even if that Pokemon wasn't native to that region, you'd still be able to transfer it in some way. But now, that's just not the case. Is Vigoroth your favorite Pokemon? Cool, I like it too. Well, guess what? Fuck you! It's gone now! And another factor is, if this was normal for Pokemon, like this whole Dexit thing began in Gen 6, then this wouldn't be as big of a deal. Disappointing for sure, but not as much fan backlash because we would have been used to it by now. But the fact that Game Freak decided to do this now with the brand new gen on the very first mainline home console game just adds a bigger gut punch to the amount of punches that were there before. if that makes sense. Hold on though, they had a good excuse. They were too busy making high-level animations that just so happened to reuse assets from previous Pokemon games. Not to mention this fucking tree. God, I hate this tree. It makes me want to fight every other tree in existence. I think in the midst of all this chaos, everyone just shit on the graphics as well, which I don't judge a game for its graphics, but for Pokemon chat right say, we're focusing on good looking shit and give us this. I mean, you're kind of asking for it at this point. And everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but God, I've never seen a fan base so in shambles like this one. Except for Sonic, actually. God, you guys have it rough. But I heard Frontiers is good. And after all the hate, controversy, and boycott around these games, it's only natural that Sword and Shield is now the second highest selling Pokemon game of all time. What is wrong with us? And I'm not here to review these games either. I had fun with it. I liked it. There were some problems with it, but I would play it again. Basically my opinion for every Pokemon game, honestly. But truly, who would have thought that the Pokemon game we spent our entire lives waiting for would end up like this? And honestly, I can say a lot more on the Gen 8 controversy, but I don't want to make this video an hour long. Unless this video gets 100k views, but that's not gonna happen. Right? Now, I'm glad to say that this is the worst of it. Now, don't get too excited. There's still a lot of other controversial stuff to go through, but at the very least, I can say it does not get as bad as this. So next up is not any sort of new Pokemon game, but instead something new to Game Freak, which is DLC for Sword and Shield. Brand new post-game content, which includes 2 new areas to explore, a bunch of new and returning Pokemon, and a pretty sweet way to play with your friends. Now, for any other series, this should be great news. But this is Pokemon though, and everything is not just black and white. Literally. So this is all paid DLC, by the way, which doesn't seem that bad, but why wasn't this in the base game? You guys used to make tons of post-game content before X and Y, and this is cool, but why are we getting it in this way? And also, all of these returning Pokemon, why are you only able to bring them back now, and not before when everyone asked you guys to? Like, God, I want to be hyped for this, but I just have so many whys. And looking back at it now, I can only think of 2 logical explanations for these decisions, and they're both very un-glass-half-full, like, yeah, they're pretty bad. Because 1, Sword and Shield was probably very rushed and needed to cut corners to reach a deadline, and 2, Game Freak is a successful company, meaning they're gonna make scummy decisions like all scummy companies do. For some pretty solid games in my book, it's a damn shame that everything that happened around it will make it go down as the most hated Pokemon game of all time. Until 2026, when everyone decides that these are the best Pokemon games because Pokemon fans are bipolar. So now comes 2021 and also the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. And I wonder, what kind of games do they have for us in store for this year? Diamond and Pearl remakes! Fucking stop cutting me off. At this point, Gen 4 remakes for the longest time have been on fans' minds. It's been 7 years since ORAS, and we've been itching to go back to Sinnoh in all of its glory. And now it seemed like the perfect time to do it. New gen, new console, and by tweaking some ideas, these games could live up to the quality of past remakes. It would literally be so hard to mess it up. Like, Game Freak would have to be idiots to somehow screw this up. Why do you keep doing this to me? Game Freak had one simple job. A remake of Diamond and Pearl seems so easy nowadays. Give it a similar style to Sword and Shield, but polish it up a bit more. Update some character and city design. Spice up the story a bit more. Give us some fucking megas. But no, they give us a 1-to-1 recreation of the originals when everyone did not want that. How could a game about catching monsters in balls give me so much pain? I respect Ilka. Thanks for making this game where there were some solid ideas, but it just seems like Game Freak didn't really understand the appeal for why everyone liked and wanted a remake in the first place. I mean, I was still excited at least. I made a whole video about that and you shouldn't check it out because it was pretty bad. Whatever though, 6 out of 10 game. It was fun, but like, you know. However, the Gen 4 remakes were not the only game that Pokemon had coming. As revealed in the very same direct was none other than Legends Arceus, a totally different and new experience of Pokemon. The trailer had a vibe not really seen before from any Pokemon reveal, and with the game centered around God, it seems like we're gonna get something very different. And again, we should have got our hype trains going, but yeah, no, that trailer looked like a very early build and reeks of unpolishment. So the biggest controversy around Legends Arceus was, we didn't really know anything about it. Like, I swear, it was September and we knew a couple of cool things about it, but everything felt so hidden. And with a release date of fucking January, it was easy to be a bit scared for these games. The fan base was not really hating on this game, but more so just cautiously kinda optimistic. And man, I was just sick of it at this point. It's been 5 years of nothing but either somewhat disappointing optimism, controversial optimism, why optimism, and now questionable optimism that I can't do this shit anymore. These games were good, and I even made an 18-minute long video about why I was hyped for these games that you shouldn't watch because it's also pretty bad. But even then, I didn't know what to think at that point. But then the most interesting, crazy, weird thing happened. Something you wouldn't believe. Now it's gonna sound absurd, but bear with me for a second. Pokemon Legends Arceus was a great game. Good job, Game Freak. You made a game that wasn't super controversial and wanted to make every Pokemon fan kill each other. That's an accomplishment for Game Freak now, I guess. So it's safe to say the past 5 years for Pokemon weren't bad financially, but were absolute hell for the fan base. Because it's not like any of these were bad games. In my opinion, don't kill me, guys. But there were so many outside factors that led to a dumpster fire of complaining, arguing, and a lot of other stuff I don't want to talk about. And honestly, I felt so beaten down and broken by the end of it. Instead of going online and seeing fans be civil, it was just a lot of, man, Pokemon isn't as good as it was before. Shut up, your parents don't love you. And even in real life too, I got some other friends who are into Pokemon and they would find many reasons to complain about these games, and they bring up great points that I for sure agree with, but like, it just makes me sad because I know how much of a sucker I am for the series in the worst way possible. It's pretty bad, guys. I can name every single Pokemon and only name like 5 states. Like, look at this Pikachu themed cake I had for one of my birthdays when I was 15, and seeing the 5 or so years of pain we Pokemon fans had to go through, it's like, what did we do to deserve this? Like, God, why did you single me out? How much have I sinned to deserve this purgatory? Oh, shit. I know why. It makes so much sense. How have I never realized this before? It's because I've never played through Ultra Sun and Moon. That's why all this happened. Sorry guys, don't blame Game Freak, just blame me from now on. And well, I can't say the build up to Scarlet and Violet has been nothing but great. There will always be a fair share of controversy with anything, like the whole VTuber thing. Like, how does... You know what? I'm not going to talk about it. But well, I will say that this has definitely been a much more pleasant ride than anything as of recent, and these games are really shaping up to be something special. So much so that I can now proudly say after everything I've been through that I am a Pokemon fan and feel no shame about it. I am a Pokemon fan! Ah, not ashamed at all.